Welcome back to Shadow Warefare, the place where we uncover hidden patterns, unseen struggles, and the deeper realities behind the battles people face every day. On this channel, we don't just talk about what's visible. We explore what's happening beneath the surface, the patterns most people ignore, and the truths that can completely change how you see your life. Today's topic might sound unsettling at first, but stay with me, because what you're about to hear could explain things you've noticed but never fully understood. Why is it that for some people, their finances suddenly collapse at certain times of the year? Why do health issues flare up out of nowhere, even when things seem stable? Why do relationships break down during specific periods, almost like a pattern repeating itself? An ex-practitioner once shared something that changed the way people at these situations. She said that while people often fear specific tests or supernatural attacks, the truth is often more subtle, more strategic, and far more connected to human behavior, timing, and vulnerability than people realize. She explained that what looks like a sudden attack is often a predictable pattern, one that repeats every year because people unknowingly walk into the same conditions over and over again. She described what she called hidden windows, not mystical dates marked on a calendar, but periods when people are most vulnerable, financially, emotionally, physically, and mentally. And according to her, once you understand these windows, you begin to see that many of the problems you thought were random are actually predictable. The first pattern she talked about was what she called the fresher cycle. This usually happens during times when expenses increase, seasonal changes, school fees, unexpected bills, or major life transitions. During these moments, the setbacks becomes rushed, and people are more likely to make financial mistakes. She said that during these periods, people often take risks they wouldn't normally take. They invest in things without proper thinking, they borrow money under pressure, or they make emotional financial decisions that hurt them later. What makes this powerful is that it repeats. Year after year, the same pressure period comes, and if nothing changes, the same outcome follows. Then she spoke about what she called the emotional fatigue window. This is the time when people are mentally drained, often after long periods of stress, work, or unresolved personal issues. During this phase, relationships and small arguments turn into major conflicts. Misunderstandings grow quickly. People say things they regret. And sometimes, relationships that could have been saved collapse simply because both people were exhausted and not thinking clearly. She said that many people blame these moments on bad luck or external forces, but in reality, they are walking into the same emotional trap repeatedly. Another pattern she revealed was the health neglect phase. This usually happens when people become too busy or distracted to take care of themselves properly. Sleep decreases, diet becomes irregular, stress builds up, and the body begins to weaken. Then suddenly illness appears. To the person experiencing it, it feels like it came out of nowhere. But in reality, it was building slowly over time. She explained that this pattern is one of the most misunderstood because people don't connect their daily habits with long-term outcomes. They only see the result, not the process that led to it. Then she described something that shocked many people. She said that one of the biggest hidden triggers for repeated problems is memory. Not conscious memory, but emotional memory. If someone experienced pain, loss, or trauma during a certain time of year, their mind and body often remember it, even if they don't realize it. When that same period comes around again, their mood changes, their decisions change, their reactions change. And without realizing it, they begin recreating the same outcomes. She said this is why some people notice that certain months or periods of the year always seem bad for them. It's not because the time itself is cursed. It's because their internal state shifts in a way that leads to the same results. Then she spoke about what she called the distraction window. This is when people become overly focused on things that pull their attention away from what truly matters. It could be social pressure, comparison with others, chasing quick success, or trying to meet unrealistic expectations. During this phase, people often lose focus on their priorities. Finances become unstable because of unnecessary spending. Health declines because routines are ignored. Relationships weaken because attention is divided. And again it repeats. She emphasized something very important. She said that in the world she once knew, the biggest advantage was not supernatural power, it was understanding human patterns. Because once you understand when people are most vulnerable, you don't need to attack them. They will often walk into the problem themselves. That statement changed everything for many who heard it. Because it shifts the focus from fear to awareness. Instead of asking, "Who is doing this to me?" the question becomes, "What pattern am I repeating?" And that question is powerful. Because once you identify a pattern, you can break it. She said the most dangerous thing is not an external force, it is an unrecognized cycle. A cycle that repeats so quietly that you begin to accept it as normal. But it's not normal, it's a pattern. And patterns can be changed. She shared that the moment people begin paying attention to their lives, tracking when problems happen, noticing emotional shifts, recognizing behavioral changes, that is the moment everything begins to shift. Because awareness interrupts repetition, and once repetition is broken, the cycle loses its power. She said that many people spend years trying to fight what they don't understand, when in reality, the answer is often right in front of them. Not in fear, not in hidden enemies, but in patterns, patterns of thinking, patterns of behavior, patterns of timing. And once those patterns are exposed, something incredible happens. People realize they are not as powerless as they thought. They begin making different choices. They prepare for difficult periods instead of being surprised by them. They protect their finances by planning ahead. They protect their health by maintaining discipline. They protect their relationships by communicating better during stressful times. And slowly the cycle begins to break. Not overnight, but steadily. And according to her, that is where real power lies. Not in fearing what might happen, but in understanding what is already happening and choosing to respond differently. She went on to explain that once someone begins to recognize these cycles, something inside them shifts. It's no longer about reacting to problems after they happen, but preparing before they even begin. And that is where most people miss it, because preparation doesn't feel urgent. It doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet, almost invisible. But that quiet preparation is what separates those who stay trapped in cycles from those who break free. She described how in her past, the biggest advantage wasn't force, it was timing. Knowing when people were distracted, when they were overwhelmed, when they were emotionally low. Those were the moments when damage happened the easiest. And she said something that made many people uncomfortable, but also opened their eyes. She said, "Most people don't fall during their strongest moments. They fall when they are tired, rushed, or distracted." And when you think about it, that explains so much. Think about the times when money slipped away faster than expected. It wasn't always during your most focused and disciplined moments. It was during times when you were under pressure, trying to fix something quickly, or making decisions without full clarity. Think about the moments when your health declined. It didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, during days when you told yourself you would rest later, eat better later, take care of yourself later, and later never came. Think about the relationships that started to fall apart. It wasn't always because of one big event. It was often a series of small moments, missed conversations, unresolved tensions, emotional distance, that built up quietly until something broke. She said that these hidden windows are dangerous not because they are mysterious, but because they are predictable and ignored. And that is where awareness becomes powerful. Because once you know that certain periods in your life bring more pressure, you can prepare for them instead of being surprised. Once you let your energy drops at certain times, you can protect your decisions during those moments. Once you understand your emotional triggers, You can respond differently instead of repeating the same reactions. She also talked about something deeper, the role of identity in repeating cycles. She said that many people unconsciously accept patterns because they believe, this is just how life is for me. If someone grows up seeing financial struggle, they may begin to believe that struggle is normal. If they grow up seeing broken relationships, they may begin to expect the same outcome for themselves, and that belief quietly shapes their decisions. They don't aim higher because they don't expect more. They don't protect what they have because they believe it won't last anyway. They don't fight for change because they assume the result is already decided. And that is how cycles continue, not just through actions, but through belief. She said breaking a cycle often begins with challenging that belief. Asking yourself, is this truly my reality? Or is this something I've been conditioned to accept? Because the moment you question a pattern, you create space for a new outcome. She then shared something that many people overlook, the importance of small decisions. People often think that major life changes come from big actions, but in reality, most outcomes are shaped by small, repeated choices. Saving a little money regularly instead of spending impulsively, choosing rest instead of constant exhaustion, having honest conversations instead of avoiding conflict, staying consistent even when motivation fades. These small decisions don't feel powerful in the moment, but over time, they build a completely different life. And she said that is exactly how cycles are broken, not through one dramatic moment, but through consistent, intentional change. She also spoke about the danger of comparison. During certain times of the year, people begin comparing themselves to others more intensely. They see others succeeding, traveling, achieving milestones, and they feel behind. That feeling often leads to rushed decisions, spending money to keep up appearances, forcing relationships, chasing opportunities that aren't right for them. And in trying to match someone else's timeline, they damage their own stability. She explained that comparison is one of the fastest ways to enter a destructive cycle, because it disconnects you from your own path. When you stop focusing on your own growth and start chasing someone else's life, you lose clarity. And without clarity, your decisions become unstable. She said, one of the most powerful things a person can do is stay grounded in their own journey. To understand their own timing, their own strengths, their own limits, because stability comes from clarity, not comparison. As she continued sharing her experience, she emphasized something that many people found surprisingly hopeful. She said that patterns may repeat, but they are not permanent. No matter how long something has been happening, it can change. But change requires awareness, discipline, and patience. It requires you to notice what others ignore, to do what others avoid, to stay consistent when others give up, and most importantly, to take responsibility for your choices, not in a way that blames you for everything, but in a way that empowers you to change what you can. Because when you take responsibility, you gain control, and when you gain control, you gain the ability to create a different outcome. She said one of the most powerful shifts she witnessed in people was when they stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What can I do differently?" That question changes everything, because it moves you from a position of helplessness to a position of action. And action is where transformation begins. She also talked about the importance of consistency during difficult times. Many people are consistent when things are easy. But when pressure increases, discipline disappears. That is when routines break, habits collapse, and progress evases. She said that the key is not perfection, but persistence. Even if you can't do everything, do something. Even if progress is slow, keep moving. Because consistency during hard times is what builds resilience. And resilience is what protects you from repeating the same cycles. As she reached the final part of her message, she left people with a thought that stayed with them long after they heard it. She said, "The most dangerous patterns are the ones you don't see, but the moment you see them, they begin to lose their power." And that is what this message is really about. Not fear, Not hidden enemies, but awareness. Because when you become aware of the patterns shaping your life, you stop living on autopilot. You begin making conscious decisions. You begin protecting what matters. You begin building a life that is intentional instead of reactive. And slowly, the cycles that once felt unbreakable begin to fade. Not because something outside changed overnight, but because you changed. Your awareness changed. Your decisions changed. Your direction changed. And that is how transformation happens. One decision at a time, one pattern at a time, one step at a time, until one day you look back and realize something powerful. The cycle that once defined your life no longer controls it, and is the moment you truly become free.